You're wearing a $600 sneaker that costs about $40 to make. The real difference from a $90 pair? A powerful, expensive story you're paying for. The luxury sneaker market has become a sophisticated status machine, using scarcity, bold design, and marketing to drive demand. But what are you really getting? We break down 5 brands that overcharge and 3 that are actually worth the money. Number 5. Common projects. Let's start with the one that hurts the most, because this one does not feel like a ripoff. The common projects. Achilles Low is a beautiful shoe. Clean Italian leather, minimalist silhouette, a stamped gold serial number on the heel. It retails between $400 and $500, and the fashion world has anointed it the definitive, quiet luxury sneaker. Here is what most people get wrong about common projects. They assume that if the fashion crowd agrees something is the best, it must be. They're not actually evaluating the shoe. They're trusting a consensus that was built on aesthetics, not construction. Footwear analysts are blunt about this. The build and materials of the Achilles Low are objectively overpriced. Other brands produce a shoe of essentially equivalent quality for $200 to $250. And that gap is not going into the leather or the stitching. It's going into the brand's reputation as the originator of the minimalist sneaker. You're paying for the idea of common projects, not the physical object. The construction details confirm it. Common Projects uses cemented and sewn outsole construction. Functional, but not what true luxury heritage shoemaking looks like. There's no Goodyear welt. The shoe cannot be resoled. When the sole goes, the shoe goes. At $450, that's a significant shortcoming that the brand's cultural cachet has trained everyone to overlook. The resale data adds the final nail. Recent StockX averages for certain colorways have dropped below retail, meaning the market itself is telling you the price premium is not justified. You are paying for a consensus. At least know that's what you're buying. So that's what happens when you pay for minimalism and reputation. Now let's look at a brand where the same markup is hidden behind scale and visibility instead. Number 4. Alexander McQueen. The Alexander McQueen oversized sneaker is one of the most recognizable shoes in the world right now. That chunky sole, that clean white leather upper. It retails for $500 to $700. It's worn by every influencer with a mid-range fashion budget, and it has become the default luxury adjacent sneaker for people who want the look without going full Balenciaga. Here is what most people get wrong. They see Italian leather and Made in Italy on the tag and assume the price is justified. It is not. The calf leather is real. The Italian manufacture is real. And that's where the honest parts of the story end. What the brand doesn't advertise is that comparable quality shoes from lesser-known Italian manufacturers exist at 40 to 50% below this price point. The shoe is aesthetically bold, but it is not technically exceptional. It is a clean, minimalist sneaker with a big sole and a very well-known name attached to it. The resale market makes the situation worse. The second-hand market is so flooded with convincing fakes that authenticated pairs are genuinely difficult to move at anything close to retail. The moment you wear them out of the box, the value collapses. And here is a detail that matters more than most people realize. Alexander McQueen is owned by Kering, the same French conglomerate that owns Gucci and Balenciaga. What that means in practice is that corporate margin targets apply. Craft investment competes with quarterly earnings. You're buying a shoe that was designed inside a spreadsheet as much as it was designed inside a studio. And once you start scaling a brand like that, the real pressure shows up in consistency. Which brings us to a house where quality control has become the bigger issue. Number 3. Gucci shoes range from $700 to over $1,400. The brand's heritage is real. Founded in Florence in 1921, genuine Italian craftsmanship for decades, and that heritage is exactly what Gucci is selling you, even as the actual product has drifted a long way from it. The Trustpilot reviews are direct, 1.8 out of 5. Customers repeatedly document the same failures: thin leather, chipping finishes, items falling apart after minimal use. At $900, these are not manufacturing tolerances you can accept. This is a fundamental disconnect between what the brand charges and what it delivers. Here is what most people get wrong about Gucci. They think the problems are isolated incidents, unlucky purchases, fakes that slipped through. They're not. Independent footwear reviewers have documented construction failures across multiple product lines, materials inconsistent with the price, finishing that doesn't hold up to normal wear, quality control that treats the customer as someone unlikely to complain loudly enough to matter. The business logic explains it. Gucci has been in a period of overproduction and falling relevance for years. Too many SKUs, too many collaborations, too many product lines. And in luxury, scarcity is not just a marketing trick, it's the mechanism by which quality gets protected. When a brand is making everything for everyone, no single thing gets made with obsessive care. You are paying for the double G logo. That is the transaction. Whether that's worth $1,000 to you is a personal question, but at least be clear that the shoe itself is not the thing you're buying. But even with declining quality, Gucci still leans on heritage. This next brand shows what happens when hype becomes the primary driver. Number 2, Balenciaga. Balenciaga's Triple S sneaker changed fashion when it launched. The chunky silhouette, the layered sole unit, the deliberate ugliness that somehow became beautiful. It was a genuinely original design moment. The shoes retail from $900 to over $1,400 today. The problem is not the history. The problem is what happened after the history. In 2025, the Triple S had nearly 900,000 global annual searches. That is not a luxury product anymore. That is a mass market product wearing a luxury price tag. And Balenciaga's response to that ubiquity was not to protect quality. It was to raise prices while the quality quietly declined. Reddit users documenting their purchases are not mincing words. I assure you the Zara quality is identical. The brand's Trustpilot score sits at 1.7 out of 5. Here is what most people get wrong about Balenciaga. They think hype and quality move together. They don't. In luxury, they often move in opposite directions. When a brand achieves mass cultural saturation, the economics of that saturation require volume, and volume is the enemy of craft. The brand that was once rare enough to be genuinely desirable became unavoidable. And in luxury, ubiquity kills desire. You're paying $1,200 for something your instincts would not have valued at $120 if the logo weren't there. The controversy in recent years has further eroded the cultural credibility that once justified even the inflated price. What you are buying now is a shell of a hype cycle. The story has already been told. And when hype is pushed to its limit, you end up here, where the product itself becomes secondary to the concept. Number 1, Golden Goose. This is the one. The most brazen value extraction in luxury footwear. Golden Goose sneakers retail between $500 and $700 per pair, and the entire product proposition is built on a single surreal premise. You are paying luxury prices for a shoe that looks like it was found behind a bar at 2 a.m. The distressed, scuffed, worn-out finish, the thing that makes Golden Goose recognizable, is deliberately applied by hand before the shoe ever reaches you. The brand employs artisans to dirty the shoe, crack the leather artificially, apply fake wear to the heel. That is not a manufacturing byproduct, it is the product. You are paying $600 for a simulation of something that happens naturally to a $90 sneaker after 18 months of actual life. Real-world owners report the leather begins cracking genuinely within months. Reddit reviews describe Golden Goose as having by far the worst quality-to-price ratio of any designer sneaker at comparable price points. The brand's value proposition is not construction, materials, or engineering. It is aesthetic storytelling and celebrity culture, the paradox of paying a premium for imperfection. Here is what most people get wrong. They think the irony is the point, that paying for distress is a kind of knowing, sophisticated statement. It isn't. It's a brand charging you for damage and calling it craft. The final verdict on Golden Goose is the simplest verdict in this entire video. Buy a $90 pair of sneakers, wear them for 2 years, and you'll have a better shoe, one whose story is actually yours. So across all 5, the pattern is clear. Price driven by perception, not construction. Now, let's look at the brands where the money actually goes into the product. Number 3. Christian Louboutin, heels only. Christian Louboutin heels are handcrafted in Italy from premium leathers. The red sole lacquer is applied by hand. No replica ever fully matches the quality of an original pair. That's not marketing copy. That's resale experts and authentication specialists saying it independently, because counterfeit construction simply cannot replicate what Louboutin does at the component level. Here is the important caveat, and it matters. This verdict applies to heels. Louboutin's sneaker and casual lines are a different conversation, one that belongs closer to the first half of this video. The brand's value is concentrated in its core product, and the core product is a women's heel. For that product, the price is largely justified. Authenticated pre-owned pairs typically sell at 30 to 50% below boutique retail, making them one of the more sensible luxury entry points in footwear. The red sole has become one of the most universally recognized quality signals in fashion, which means you retain real social and resale value in addition to the physical quality of the object itself. If you're going to spend $800 to $1,200 on a pair of heels, Louboutin is one of the few brands where that money meets what you're actually holding in your hands. That's a brand where craftsmanship still exists, but it's concentrated in one category. This next one applies that same level of discipline across its entire identity. Number 2, Bottega Veneta. Bottega Veneta operates on a philosophy that has become genuinely rare in luxury. When your own initials are enough, no visible logos, no brand name across the toe, nothing to signal to anyone else what you spent, just the shoe. Every pair is handmade in Italy using premium calfskin and lambskin. The brand's signature intrecciato woven leather technique, the one you'll recognize from the bags, is not purely decorative. The weaving structurally reinforces the leather, making it more resistant to tearing, creasing, and the kind of deterioration that makes most luxury shoes unwearable within a few years. Here is what most people get wrong about Bottega. They look at the price, $800 to $1,800, and compare it to the Golden Goose at $600 or the Gucci at $1,000 and assume they're all playing the same game. They're not. Bottega is not selling you a cultural moment or a logo or a celebrity association. It is selling you a shoe that was made by a craftsperson who has spent years learning one specific technique, constructed from materials selected for longevity rather than margin, designed to look exactly as good in a decade as it does today. The quiet luxury movement in the United States is not a trend. It is a correction. Consumers waking up to the difference between buying status and buying quality. Bottega is at the center of that correction for very good reason. Bottega shows what modern luxury can look like when it prioritizes materials. This final brand shows what happens when the entire model is built around construction. For number 1, Manolo Blahnik. If we are talking about women's luxury shoes, this is where the money actually starts making sense. Manolo Blahnik is one of the rare brands in this price range where the product is not just a logo attached to a heel. It is the heel. Founded in the 1970s, Manolo Blahnik built its reputation on hand-finished women's shoes made in Italy, with a strong focus on construction, silhouette, and materials. This is not the kind of brand that sells you a trend and hopes the next season covers the flaws. It sells you a shoe that is meant to look elegant, feel refined, and hold up over time. Here is what most people get wrong about Manolo Blahnik. They compare it to other luxury names and assume all expensive women's shoes are basically the same. They are not. Some brands charge for hype, some charge for branding, and some charge for actual design discipline. Manolo sits much closer to the last category. For heels specifically, this is one of the few luxury brands where the price is easier to justify because the craftsmanship is visible in the final product. The shape, balance, finish, and overall construction are what you are paying for, not just the name on the box. If you are going to spend serious money on a women's shoe, this is the question to ask. Am I buying a fashion statement or am I buying something genuinely well made? With Manolo Blahnik, the answer is often both. Which brand surprised you most? Drop it in the comments. And if you've owned any of these, I want to know what your actual experience was.